All right, it is 11:02, and I'm calling the Texas Early Learning Council meeting to order. I'm Reagan Miller. I'm the chair of the Texas Early Learning Council and also the director of Child Care and Early Learning at the Texas Workforce Commission. I want to welcome all of our council members and the public who is also in attendance today. We are producing this as a Zoom webinar. Council members, presenters, and agency staff are presenting as panelists, while members of the public are able to participate in a listen-only mode. As a reminder to our members and panelists, please keep your electronic devices on mute when not speaking. Megan will also mute us if we forget. Megan is the Interagency Deputy Director of Early Childhood Support, and she's also serving as today's meeting facilitator. And I want to remind everyone, try to remember before you speak to state your name. Okay, so public comment. I want to remind everyone that public comment closed yesterday at 5 p.m. Written public comment. Members of the public are still able to provide oral public comment today by emailing their request to Megan Schneider, and Megan is going to put instructions in the chat with her email if anybody would like to submit a request to speak orally today. Let's see, do we have yes, we do. We have a new member with us. Shruti Aramendez is the director of the Maternal and Child Health Unit at the Department of State Health Services. So welcome to your first Texas Early Learning Council meeting. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Reagan. Appreciate it.
All right. And I also want to point out that June Yeatman is no longer with us. June retired from the Austin Community College Children's Lab School in Austin. June was a longtime member, and we'll certainly miss having her on the council. And so everybody knows we're about to lose another longtime member. Kathy Abba is retiring in December. So Kathy, thank you so much for everything you've done as a member, and congratulations on your upcoming retirement.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on to the August 2024 meeting approval. The minutes were emailed to you, so everybody should have received those. And I want to see if any of the members have edits or changes to the draft August 2024 meeting minutes. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
This is Kathy Abba. I make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Kathy. And do we have a second?
This is Kim Coffrin. I will approve. And Kathy, I was going to tell you to approve the minutes because you always do as your last meeting. Thank you for your service.
Kim, thank you for the second. If there is no discussion, then we are going to move to a roll call vote. Megan's going to facilitate that.
All right, thank you, Reagan. Like Reagan said, I'm Megan Schneider. I'm the meeting facilitator here. So members, when I call your name, please reply for, against, or abstain. So let's see, Kathy Abba.
For.
Sarah Abrahams.
For.
Shruti Aris Mendez.
Abstain.
Weldon Beard.
For.
Terry Breeden.
For.
April Crawford. Alfrema Giles. Melissa Hoisington. Becky Huss-Keeler.
For.
Kim Coffrin.
For.
Ori Lee.
For.
Beatrice Mata. Reagan Miller.
Abstain.
Maricela Nava.
For.
Stephanie Rubin.
For.
Amber Scanlon.
For.
Kirsten Schwab. Kirsten Schwab. All right. Jennifer Stockmer
4.
and Megan Young.
4.
The motion to approve the August 2024 meeting minutes has carried, and we also met a quorum. And I will turn it back to you, Reagan.
All right. Thank you, members. I also want to recognize Madeline Traeger from the Office of the First Lady, and I want to thank her for joining our meeting today. We're happy you can be here. All right. Next, we're going to move on to public comment, and Megan, you're also going to facilitate this agenda item for us.
I am. So we didn't receive any requests for public comments in advance, but we'll use this as a chance just to remind folks that we always post the agenda a week or more ahead of time on at the earlylearningtexas.gov. And there is always a chance at the beginning of these meetings for folks to provide public comment about anything that the council is discussing. So we don't have any today, but I will pass it back to you, Reagan.
All right, thank you. I couldn't be here at the last meeting. There was a great deal of public comment on childcare on my issue. I want to thank all of those folks who came at the last meeting. I'm so glad we record these, so I was able to go back and listen to all of that. So thanks to those of you who were here last time. All right, so we are going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the Texas Early Learning Strategic Plan. So as a reminder, our federal preschool development grant, the PDG grant, allowed us to update our early learning strategic plan, and we've committed to progress updates at each of our TELC meetings. You'll recall that the plan has 4 goals. And today we're going to hear updates on actions that are related to Goal 3 and to Goal 4. So our first update is on Goal 3, that's local systems and partnership strategies. In Strategy 3.1, providing educational and informational supports to local partnerships to help communities make informed decisions. So Jody Snee from the Family Support Services with HHSC is going to provide us with some updates.
Thanks, Reagan. Just a quick update on part of this strategy and the sub-strategy being offering those sub-grants to existing family support services programs to help local communities focus on their particular community needs. And so for this strategy, you all know that PDG is supporting family support services initiatives, that these are what we had issued a funding opportunity for across our early childhood grantees and providers. That opportunity and initiative, which we call the Early Childhood Systems Building and Family Engagement Initiatives. And so across these initiatives and approaches and activities, these are in progress, and through our funded programs, some of them were able to either establish or enhance their centralized access and resource navigation in their local respective communities, where those programs had identified centralized access as a primary need and a primary focus of their early childhood systems building activities. So a number of FSS grantees, using their existing infrastructure, their expanding networks, and this increased investment, they're focusing on that type of service where, of course, centralized access is connecting those families and professionals in their network to an expanded network of community services and resources, and even information to support young children and their families. And so centralized intake and referral systems launched and were expanded in 7 communities with that PDG investment and through the early childhood systems building initiatives. So this is not an exhaustive list, of course, of all the centralized access activities happening across the state, just the ones that are growing right now under the PDG investment. And so that's Brazos, Burleson, and Grimes counties. They're combining their Find Help and their centralized access initiative with Family Resource Center expansion. Dallas, Rockwall, and Kaufman also expanding their family navigation services in that community and across those counties. Ector, Midland, El Paso, we're launching centralized access, and then Harris and Galveston expanding their services, which we all know is definitely needed in really complex communities like that. And then Tarrant and Wise counties as well, also combining with Family Resource Center activities. And so centralized access and resource navigation, it's also supported through the new Help Me Grow communities. Hays and Caldwell is expanding. Montgomery County is expanding, Colorado and Fayette counties, more rural area, and then also in Nueces and San Patricio counties. We're really excited. If we move to the next slide really quickly, just want to talk a little bit more concretely about some of their activities. This quarter, those awardees addressed more than 950 calls through their centralized access services. And these, again, are new platforms or newly expanded platforms. They've connected families to relevant services, information, and providers. And then one of the things that we're really excited about, more than 200 families were connected to early childhood programs specifically through those centralized access services in those communities. So all to say, we are really excited about these activities. We're thrilled about how well those communities are doing with their expansion, but also how well received that interface and those platforms have been for families in those communities. They're able to connect to developmental screenings and referrals more readily. They're able to connect to other services more rapidly, and even providing information to parents in real time about parenting concerns or parenting questions. Those family navigators are really maximizing those centralized access platforms. So we're really excited to see what we can continue to support and expand on, and what those particular communities can accomplish with this particular strategy.
Thank you, Jody. Questions or comments from council members?
This is Stephanie. You mentioned the grants, because that's, continuing offering sub grants. Is there, is that a specific, is that part of, is that just going to be a grant program for the existing providers, or is there an opportunity to scale up with additional funds? I just can't remember what's in the LAR on this point, so I wanted to see if you could share a little more about that.
That is a great question. And so right now, those activities are currently funded through just that portion of PDG dollars that are in place right now. And then those dollars were allocated through that specific funding strategy. And so, Stephanie, I think you're familiar with HOPES programming and Texas Home Visiting Programming. Those are the programs that we're talking about who put in applications to utilize those dollars and thus apply those dollars to these particular activities and strategies right now. So it's PDG dollars through a funding opportunity to those particular providers across the state. That said, though, we're really hoping that because they're experiencing, I think, such good results already with that investment, that they may look toward other funding opportunities going forward and build these types of activities into future funding opportunities as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right. Then we are now going to go to Stephanie Bonnet-Kramer from TWC to discuss progress on action 3.1.2 on how TWC and TEA will continue to support staff that are working towards the development of our pre-kindergarten and childcare partnerships.
Good morning and happy Friday. Thank you, Reagan. I am Stephanie Bonnet-Kramer, State Coordinator for Pre-K Partnerships with the Texas Workforce Commission. In reference to this action item, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the work that has been done to support the development of pre-K partnerships. In November of 2021, the Texas Workforce Commission approved an allocation for the expansion of pre-K partnerships throughout the state. Over the next several months, 25 locally situated staff were onboarded, and the framework by which to do this work was established. During this time, the commission also approved an allocation for the Texas Education Agency to work with the Texas A&M University system to further support the development of pre-K partnerships. A team that had previous experience developing pre-K partnerships in their school districts was assembled. Outreach efforts to inform childcare providers, school districts, and charter schools of the opportunity to partner with one another commenced in June 2022. Entities interested in partnering were supported as they explored options and began brokering terms of the partnership. Childcare providers that enter a formal pre-K partnership in which children are dually enrolled in both the childcare program and public pre-K are eligible to apply for a one-time award of $25,000 to support costs associated with the new pre-K partnership classroom. Over the course of the initiative, our team has supported the development of 52 informal partnerships and 81 formal pre-K partnerships, resulting in the disbursement of $2.25 million to participating childcare providers. In doing this work, we've been able to develop resources and support strategies that facilitate the development of partnerships for interested entities. This includes, but is not limited to, standardized messaging, informational collateral, in addition to the processes by which we engage with entities and provide support. Our colleagues at the Texas A&M University system enlisted Moat Casey, an organization that supports the financial management and operation of public schools, to develop a 3-part video series and financial forecasting template for school districts and charter schools. This resource has proven pivotal to schools realizing the fiscal impact and benefits of partnering with community childcare providers and being amenable to exploring options. And for y'all that don't know, school finance is complicated. So we are very fortunate to have been able to secure this resource because it really has been a game changer. The Pre-K Partnership Expansion Initiative concluded September 30th, 2024. However, the program was codified by House Bill 1615 in the last legislative session. With the permanency of the program, there was some restructuring of staff. The permanent program launched on October 1st with a team of 13. We are highly motivated to continue our collaboration with the Texas Education Agency and Texas A&M University to facilitate the exploration and creation of partnerships throughout the state. We're excited to have some new resources underway and will continue to provide the $25,000 award to eligible childcare providers that are in a formal partnership. And that rounds up my quick overview.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Let me see if council members have questions or comments. Stephanie?
Oh yeah, you knew one was coming from me. So I thank you for this background and for this work. I think we all know partnerships are really important and also really hard. And there's a lot of questions, Stephanie, that come up around the cost and the blending and braiding of funding and how that can work most effectively. And I was wondering if that's been a role of A&M in this project to look into the revenue, but also the cost and how to pay for that, or if that's an opportunity for the future, for a future contract with them. We get a lot of questions about, you know, different communities trying it different ways, blending and braiding in different ways. There's probably not going to be one best practice, but there's probably a lot of lessons in there so far.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question, Stephanie. And yes, the 3-part video series and that financial forecasting template has already been able to answer the call. When we first started this initiative, school districts in particular were wanting to know how is this going to impact my bottom line? Because we know we're currently in a situation where both public school programs as well as childcare programs are often operating at a deficit. And so we do have to look at that financial aspect of things. So that series as well as the template has been really helpful for school districts, in addition to being able to allow them to look at how much money they can pass through to the childcare provider. Because with these partnerships, most oftentimes the children are going to remain at that childcare program, receiving their care and early education. With the teacher shortage that our state as well as the nation has been experiencing, a lot of times the childcare program is also employing that staff for the pre-K partnership classroom. And so we're really looking at the school district or charter school to pass through funding to offset those costs. You mentioned that it's going to look a lot of different ways, and you are absolutely right. There is no cookie cutter model for these partnerships to be employed, which can be a blessing and a curse, right? We want these partnerships to be tailored to those specific communities, and so that is going to look different. We know that there are some success stories throughout our state where different areas have been doing partnerships for a long time and they've figured out the magic, so to speak. And, we definitely highlight those instances. Now that we've got this experience under our belt, we've been able to bring entities, whether those be school districts or childcare programs that have gone through this process with our team, to be able to speak to those that are interested in maybe doing the same. So I don't know if I answered your question, Stephanie. And when
And
I
haven't
said
watched and I haven't watched the video, but the way you're talking about it is that it looks like the audience on the forecasting side is school districts, but then of course childcare has to figure out whether,
It's-
financially it works for them. Is that a different forecasting model, or that helps them as well?
help them as well, because that forecasting template is available for anyone to see. So full transparency, they're able to see what that school district is going to draw down. But I do hear what you're saying as far as making sure that we help childcare centers remain whole, and that is something that our team, TWC, as well as Texas A&M University System, we walk through those scenarios. We don't want anyone to be caught flat-footed with the transition that might happen to receiving a blended rate for those pre-K4 students. So we look at that first year and beyond, because people get really excited that first year they get that one-time award of $25,000. And so that can offset some of it, but we want these partnerships to be longstanding. So we do walk through, what does it look like beyond that $25,000 award?
All right. Kim.
Simple question, Stephanie, for you. Where can we find the video? Is it available to all of us? For those of us nerds that like to get into school financing?
Absolutely. We invite you to visit our webpage, our pre-K partnership webpage at TWC. Once I'm not talking at the same time, I'll drop it into the chat if that's allowable. And so there's a section on that webpage. If you scroll down, schools, and it's all linked there. It is also on the TEA webpage as well. And so yes, they are out there for public consumption. We invite people to please peruse those.
And is it what? I know marketing is a dirty word in the state government, but what type of are you waiting for school districts to come to you, or what kind of outreach is happening on the TEA side of that piece?
So when this video series was created in combination with that forecasting template, and it all culminated last February, this past February, 2024, we hosted a series of meetings where we invited all of the school districts and charter schools to attend, and we went through those. TAMU's, or Texas A&M University System, they were hosting it. Moat Casey, that organization that I spoke of, they were on hand to answer live questions. And we're thinking that we need to stand that up again. Every time we do engage with a interested charter school or school district, we bring this to the forefront, because we do know that it's such an important piece to making that decision of whether or not to partner.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your question.
All right.
Becky, did you still have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Well, it's just comment, maybe question. I was at TAYC, Texas Association of Education Young Children, this past weekend, and they had a public policy breakfast, and the one superintendent from out in West Texas was there, and she's really gung-ho on the partnerships. And they seemed to allude that it was something that was going to be brought up with the legislature this time. It's one of the big topics. And I didn't know. And then also I'm a teacher at University of Houston Clear Lake, and we have programs for people to get certified and non-certification too, but certification like early childhood grade 3, and we could do it online first basis as well. And she stopped by our booth. So I think that she seemed to say that they really are trying to get some of the teachers there at the child development centers certified so that their own people can be hired on as within this program, because currently you have to be a certified teacher to teach the students that are coming, in this program for TEA, and so that's another whole piece of it, to get enough people certified with the appropriate certification to do that. But have you heard anything more about the legislature? It seemed like that was one of the big topics that was coming up.
We will be following that just as everyone else will, and we anticipate that there will probably be some focus on pre-K partnerships as there was in last legislative session. I do want to say, as far as the teaching requirements, there is some latitude as a result of House Bill 2729, where some childcare programs are able to utilize the staff that they have in-house. That flexibility for staffing does occur with pre-K 4 partnerships. For pre-K 3, a certified teacher is still required. And that kind of goes hand in hand. I hear what you're saying, Becky, about trying to, in a sense, replenish the pool of certified teachers, certified staffing. And I think that we're able to support that with programs such as Teach, and making sure that we get the appropriate training and learning opportunities for the staff that are in our childcare programs.
Yes, and our university offers that, and it can be done online or face-to-face. So that's something that I think she was interested in. So thank you.
Thank you for your question. Jennifer?
Hi, good morning, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing. I have a question. Everything you've talked about is from the perspective of like the school district. Is there information available to the early learning programs about how they would approach this, or is it completely initiated by the school district?
I understand that perspective. I did highlight the resource for the financials for the school districts and charter schools. We do very much support the child care providers. We know that this is a important opportunity for them. It's a business decision that they are engaging in. And so we make sure that they are aware of all of the opportunities and perhaps considerations that they need to make in entering a partnership. I will say, full transparency, we did at one time have a calculator available on our website. We are in the process of trying to get that updated but that needs coding and things that we need to find the appropriate people to do that. But outside of having a ready tool for them to utilize, we do spend a lot of time talking to them about, if it's a pre-K 3 partnership, this is what it will do for your funding. If it's a pre-K 4 partnership, going to that blended rate, what does that look like? And we're big believers in equal voice, equal choice. We understand that entering these partnerships from a provider can be a little bit daunting, because we're working with a lot of privately owned childcare centers that, the owner is the director, is the cook, is the, potty break giver, and all of the things. And so we want to make sure that they have a good awareness of what they are engaging in. Also, I got distracted by this pop-up here. Oh, and so we are the people that can mediate some of those conversations, because when you're thinking about a school district, and all of our 1,200 school districts are created differently, right? Some of them have an early learning program department, some of them don't. So it's like, do you go and knock on the door? Are you asking for the superintendent right from the get-go? Or is there somebody else that you should start with? And we have talked to the whole gamut. We meet regularly with the chief financial officers, superintendents, deputy superintendents. Sometimes there is an early learning program. So we're really here to support those early learning programs in navigating this space and making it to where it's beneficial. We want them to remain whole and be able to continue the business and the important role that they hold within our communities. I hope that answers.
Well, yeah, but a follow-up to that is, as an early learning program, how would they approach this situation to get involved as a partner?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry if I missed that. Call us, reach out to us. We have our website, we have a program email box. One of the things that we're doing right now, Jennifer, as we have launched this permanent program, letting everybody know we're still here, we're still ready to help and support, is that we're meeting with each of our local workforce development boards throughout the state with their child care departments, and reminding them that we are here, asking them to be a conduit of information, because they do have that direct link to childcare programs. We have a program email box, which again, I'll put in the chat so that people can share that out for us. We get emails daily from childcare programs inquiring about the opportunity. And we do, as Becky mentioned, the Texas AYC annual conference occurred last week. Myself and Kendra Weiss from Texas A&M University System, we provided a session talking about expanding access through pre-K partnerships. Let's see, this month is going to be busy. I'm going to Lamarck to speak to a group of providers. I'm going to Region 1 to speak to, I think, superintendents, but we are here at the ready to go anywhere, virtually, in person, because the first step is information. We still are in these meetings where sometimes people are like, what? We can do that? And then some people, of course, it's old hat. They've been there, done that, and they can share their experiences. And I believe Allison Wilson, thank you so much for posting those things. I cannot do more than one thing at once. So Allison has posted both the link to the website as well as the link to our program email box. That is monitored by myself and Michelle Gibson, our assistant state coordinator. And so we're very quickly able to either route that to the appropriate staff or answer those inquiries ourselves. Stephanie?
Yeah, I had two questions. One is trying to get a handle on about how many partnerships there are. And it sounds like it's somewhere between 150 and 200 maybe. And a lot of those are Head Start programs. And so I guess first question is let me know if that sounds right, and where we can find those numbers, if you know. And the second question is about something we're as a team spending a lot more time learning about, which is what are the supports available for programs, so community programs that are in partnerships who may need to be serving kids with disabilities in early childhood special ed. So there's, school districts may be set up with requirements, but if there's a child care partnership in particular, are there supports for that program in order to be able to, to care for those kids and based on the needs that they have identified?
The first one, the number of pre-K partnerships. I have numbers from last year. So there were 27 different LEAs with those numbers that I shared earlier, the 52 and the 81. Okay. That involved 27 school districts or charter schools. Okay. That is representative of the partnerships that our team has supported. TEA does collect the data about pre-K partnerships. The caveat to that is it is self-reported from school districts and charter schools. So sometimes it's challenging to get an accurate reflection. It is something that we are working with TEA hand in hand to hopefully provide some additional technical assistance to those school districts and charter schools on how to accurately report that.
Okay.
Because we know that there are a number of school districts within the state that have been doing this work independent of our arrival on the scene. And, we hear about those, but we don't necessarily have the data associated with them. So that is, I think, a long-term project of making sure that we have a more accurate account of who is participating in partnerships moving forward. And then the second part of your question, as far as accommodating the special needs of children, if there is a partnership, a formal partnership in place, and those children qualify for public pre-K, it is the school district's responsibility to make sure that those needs are served. And so they will need to assess what that looks like. I know that in one school district that we work with, once a need is identified, whether it's speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, they provide those services, but the parent is responsible for taking their children to the school district where those offerings are done. In another school district, I know that they have itinerant staff that they deploy to the childcare, just as they would one of their campuses within the district. Again, there's no one way to do it. I think the important thing is making sure that the needs of those children are being met and that we are in compliance with the laws that are outlined for special education students.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions or comments about pre-K partnerships? Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay, our last update is an update from the Texas Education Agency on Action 4.1, which are our efforts to develop an early childhood integrated data system, or an ECIDS. And I understand that Megan will be updating on behalf of TEA.
Hi, thanks, Reagan. Yep, so Megan Schneider, putting on my TEA hat instead of my meeting facilitator hat. For those of y'all who don't know, I'm the Interagency Deputy Director of Early Childhood Support, and I'm at TEA, but I'm a shared employee across the three agencies involved in that work, which are TEA, Texas Workforce Commission, and Health and Human Services Commission. And I say that because this early childhood integrated data system work is being led by that group of agencies, of those three agencies. So we are at TEA helping to dive in on this strategy 4.1 of developing an early childhood integrated data system. So I will go down to the next slide. Within that strategy 4.1, we're focused on these first two. So developing that cross-agency data governance plan, as well as reviewing existing statutory and legal requirements. And the work on that, where we stand as an agency right now, is that we're focused on hiring for 2 positions, which are funded through the Preschool Development Grant. And those 2 new roles will be focused on advancing efforts toward an early childhood integrated data system in partnership with the other 2 agencies, so Texas Workforce Commission and Health and Human Services Commission. Those roles aren't yet posted, but we're very close, and they should be up soon. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, members, questions or comments about our work on ECIDS? Okay. So as we're talking about this strategic plan, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is there are several action items that are assigned to the Texas Early Learning Council. So the Texas Early Learning Council itself has a role in taking some actions in order to help advance some of the strategies that are within the plan. And in order for the council to really do this, we want to talk about the idea of standing up a strategic plan work group. So you guys will remember we had an ECIDS work group previously that met to develop that ESIDS roadmap. And so as you think about the work that ESIDS roadmap work group did, what do you guys think about this idea of having a strategic plan work group? We could charge this group with looking at the items that obviously are collectively assigned to the council, and then think about prioritizing and determining the next steps and owners for those items. We had wondered if goal 2 related to workforce recruitment, retention, and support might be a good place to start, because there were the most action items assigned to the council in that section of the plan. And of course, we continue to hear about the clear need in this area from our needs assessment, and then we continue to hear about that through our daily work. But of course, prioritization would be up to this work group if we decide that that's the best way to go. As we did with the ESIDS work group, we could ask council members to serve. Council members could have a designee that they wanted to serve. We could look at membership, reconsider membership as we're halfway through. But I just wanted to throw this out and see what do council members think about this idea of standing up a group specifically to look at those strategic plan action items that are TELC flagged. Sarah.
Hey, Sarah Abrahams with HHSC. That's like one of the first times I've said that out loud, like in this kind of forum. So I'm mostly chiming in to say that I was a member, in fact, one of the chairs for the ESIDS work group that we put together. And I just want to sort of throw in some support for this idea, because I felt like using that work group model really allowed us to roll up our sleeves and get in there and have sort of work more timely and quickly through some really big, bulky information. And I just think for these kinds of activities that we've called out in the strategic plan, it would be really useful to have some smaller groups tackle it in that way. And I thought it was a really successful sort of strategy for the Early Learning Council to identify a separate work group for that kind of activity. So just putting my support in for that idea.
Thank you, Sarah. Other council members? Is anyone opposed to this idea?
I like the idea. I think it gives us an opportunity to, do some work in between meetings, and then not kind of just come and mostly be listeners with the, odd Stephanie Rubin question, and everybody else trying to kind of navigate more last minute, some questions. So I think the other opportunity is to help the council think about some of the goals in a cross-sector way, in a cross-system way, because they, that's how we talked about them from the council, right? Is that families have access to a range of supports for their young kids, and also trying to measure whether whether we're meeting the goals, but also what the outcomes are so far. And the last piece is, I think it would probably help us in a future application if we're just more engaged in this process on a regular basis, so that it's a little easier for us to figure out what would be the next step if there is another federal opportunity for the Early Learning Council for the PDG grant, which I think we don't know, right, so far.
Correct. Other council members? Becky, you're on mute.
I think it's a good idea, especially to drill down into some of those areas, especially the big ones that still need to be tackled, and because at least it shows that we're being proactive and not just the big things are just sitting there and say, well, they don't do anything. It's just a group, or whatever. So I think that's a way to get some things done. And especially since we're in a state where the legislature only meets every 2 years, that to get this stuff done and to bring up some issues that things might arise from this group that we hadn't thought of before, that we could, and that maybe other people on the committee or other people can help deal with, you know what I mean? So I think it's a good idea.
All right. So it sounds like we all think this is a good idea. So I want to throw out one more area for us to consider. When our current operating procedures state that you have to post meetings as an open meeting for regular, special, and work group meetings. And so I'm curious if you guys are interested in allowing this work group not to meet in like posted open meetings, that the work group can gather more informally to talk through issues and obviously report back to the full council in an open meeting. So they could call meetings more quickly. You wouldn't have to go through the posting process, all of those things. If that's something that you're interested in, it would require a change to the council's operating procedures so that we made posted open meetings for regular and special meetings of the full council, and we eliminated and work group. So let me throw that out and see what your thoughts are on that.
Sarah, I was just going to ask Sarah, what did we do for the ESIDs? Did we do
Okay,
open
I
meetings?
was about to say, so I was gonna chime in to say, like, I'm always a fan of transparency. So I
Right.
hope this is not that, but I will say the ESIDS was an open work group, and I'm telling you, not one time did someone that was not in the work group attend, unless like we often invited
them.
other folks to
Right.
come and like brainstorm with us or provide information or presentations. But I do think it would have been helpful if we would have been able to sort of meet more ad hoc, like something came up, we want to schedule a follow-up meeting really fast to get additional information, and that was sometimes difficult. So I wonder if we can come to some agreements about how we share back information, or the regularity that the work group shares back information, at least to address the sort of openness and transparency that I think is the intent of that rule, but allow the work group to like have the flexibility and the speed with which they can like really do what we're asking them to do.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Shruti?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo a little bit of what Sarah just said. Like, I love the idea of transparency. What my concern is around is if we have a certain number of members who are part of the work group and we meet quorum, there might be other implications for that. I know with other advisory committees, if you hit a quorum, it has to be an open meeting. I just don't know if that's something that we have to consider for this one as well.
Yes, yeah, I think you're correct. We would, unless we amend those TELC operating procedures.
What is quorum?
Depends on how big the work group is. It depends on how many people volunteer to be on the work group. So a majority.
What's quorum of this group?
So quorum is a majority of the members.
Right.
Megan, correct me if I'm
How
wrong.
many? Is
But
that
if the
what you're
work,
asking, Jim? Yeah.
if we establish a work group and the work group had 3 members, if 2 of those wanted to talk, that would be a quorum.
Oh, I was thinking Shruti was thinking about quorum of this group. Like if we had Megan, how many members do we have?
We have
Megan Schneider.
we have 19 members right now. So a quorum is a majority of those members.
Right. So if we had, we just
10.
would have. I was thinking that meant we just have to have the work group less than 10, so that way we're not meeting a quorum of the. It's not a quorum of the TLC.
I guess it depends on how many people are actually on the work group. If every single member is on the work group or has a designee, then the work group would have 19 members. But if the work group only has 3 members
Six,
that
right.
volunteer, 6 that volunteer, then obviously the quorum has to adjust to the size of the entity itself.
Megan Young, my understanding, I think to Shruthi's point is if there's 9 TELC members creates a quorum of this group today. If we have 9 TELC members in the work group, it is it has to legally be an open meeting. So as long as we have 8 or fewer TELC members, a designee, like if someone else from ECI sits in the work group, but it's not me, that doesn't count towards quorum. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Shruti, I'm following
yeah.
now that Megan clarified.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan.
So I, if you guys are interested, I think what we need to do is decide, are people comfortable amending the operating procedures, understanding that caveat that clearly it would be posted if there are more than 9 members.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, then I'm going to make a motion to amend the Texas Early Learning Council operating procedures, section 3.3, open meetings, to state that regular and special meetings of the council shall be open to the public. That will remove "and work group" from that statement. Is there a second?
This is
Second,
Kim Coffrin.
Stephanie
I'll
Rubin.
second.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Kim Coffrin has seconded. Megan, will you take a vote of the members?
Absolutely. So same as the roll call we did at the beginning. When I state your name, please say for, against, or abstain. Kathy Abba,
For.
Sarah Abrahams,
For.
Shruti Aris Mendez,
For.
Weldon Beard,
For.
Carrie Breeden,
For.
April Crawford, Alfrema Giles, Melissa Hoisington, Becky Huskeeler,
Or.
Kim Coffrin,
For.
Corey Lee, Corey,
For.
Beatrice Mata, Reagan Miller,
Or
Maricela Nava,
For.
Stephanie Rubin,
For.
Amber Scanlon,
For.
Kirsten Schwab, Jennifer Stockmer,
For.
and Megan Young.
For.
Great. The move to amend the operating procedures has carried, and I'll pass it back to you, Reagan.
all right, wonderful. I want to echo what some council members just said about transparency, because this is in no way intended to not be transparent. Sarah, I really appreciate your observation that all of those past meetings that were posted, you didn't have anybody from the public there, and that we retain our commitment to reporting out on all of this at future council meetings. So now I'm giving council members an assignment, and that is by November 1st, please email Catherine Davis and let us know if you or a designee is interested in participating in this work group. If we have a quorum, if we have more than 9 members of the council who want to participate, then these meetings will be posted.
Could you please tell about a little bit more what you had in mind for the work group? How the focus of it?
So the focus is going to be, and by the way, the work group will meet to really help define this, but our thoughts are, in the Texas Early Learning Strategic Plan, there are several action items and strategies that specifically talk about the TELC weighing in on suggestions. So for example, the TELC will explore how to expand the number of higher education programs for physical, occupational, and speech therapists that educate or train on early childhood provisions. TELC will explore engaging experienced retired teachers to re-enter the workforce in an expanded range of roles in and outside of direct services. TELC will provide support for workforce preparedness and skill by promoting existing early learning competencies and skill sets. So there are a lot of things within the plan that specifically mention the council getting engaged in certain things. And so we'd like an opportunity for this work group to really review those in more detail and to think through, what does that look like? Are there things that we want to request, or letters to be sent, outreach to be done for some of those strategies? So we just want to give this this work group an opportunity to really talk more in detail through those action items.
Thank you.
You bet.
Reagan,
Okay.
can I, just
yes.
on the report back, I was just wondering, maybe you and Megan could think about if there's a template for, not for minutes, but just for kind of taking notes. So where there's some consistency to help with report back, or maybe if people are doing it by Zoom, to record it and just make sure to have a record, whatever you all think would be something, so it we're all reporting back enough information to that it feels transparent and we have some consistent process, maybe.
Yeah, good suggestion. And Kathy.
Question. This kind of sounds right up my alley, though sadly I will not be able to participate. How do you define designated representative?
So I believe last time, Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, I had from the Texas Workforce Commission another staff member who was more involved in data, participating on the ESIDS work group. I believe Stephanie had somebody from Texans Care for Children, again, more involved in data on that work group. So each member could take somebody from their organization and ask them to participate on their behalf.
Okay, so it would have to be somebody on my behalf, so which is not going to be an option for me, since I will no longer have a behalf. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. So that takes us to our next agenda item, which are updates from council members. So we had planned on having an update from Kirsten Schwab and PBS, but Kirsten is not at today's meeting.
Reagan, this is Kirsten. I'm sorry, I'm joining late. I apologize for my tardiness.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you're here. Wonderful. Okay, then Kirsten, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you for this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about some new things that we're doing as part of some research that we've done around parents and parents' attitudes about media. So just to start off, to tell you, I think all of you all have been wonderful colleagues and a lot about our organization, but just to sort of set the table and give you some more information. We focus on kids ages 2 to 8. We're developing media content to meet the needs of those kids. And as you all know, those kids are very different from, they have different experiences than we had, particularly their experiences with digital. And so to do this effectively, we keep an eye toward the changing trends and how kids use media. And kids today, known as Generation Alpha, have had tech integrated into every aspect of their lives from birth, really. So helping parents and caregivers who are millennials or they're Gen Z, kind of, understanding and figuring out how to navigate. all of the challenges and all of the great experiences that come with these tools. And so so next slide, please. So we focus really on the whole child, and use academic research and advisory groups to help us understand the needs of kids today, both from a media perspective, but also from a learning perspective. And we layer on that where parents are. So we really want to try to create this triangle where educators, parents, and other caregivers in the community are working together to help create a whole child. Next slide, please. So in view of that, we have a new show to let you all get a sneak peek of. And the relevance of this for this group, I think you'll see as we kind of start talking about it. But Carl the Collector is our latest show, and it will hit your TV, tablet, and phone screens in November. And the idea behind this really came out of this research we've been doing with parents about what are the gaps that they see. And part of that is helping their kids navigate neurodiversity. So a number of kids experience that in the classroom. And so understanding and building empathy around neurodiversity. So I think, is my next slide the clip? We'll roll the clip and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. There we go. Thank you.
To know what's in your collection.
This is my gemstone collection. It sparkles! Whoa! I love my magnets. I think I have 1 million shells. What is that amazing smell? They're candles. This is my favorite one and I love it. It looks perfect. Wow.
What's in our collection? Carl the Collector.
So this is a sneak peek.
To know what.
Thank you. This new show is a collection of characters who represent kids with autism or who are on that autism spectrum. The lead character is Carl, and he is a collector. But it also introduces a character who is a young girl and is one of his best friends, and his whole kind of support system among his peers. The writer, this came out of some children's books, and the writer and developer of this series also identifies on the autism spectrum, and the director is the parent of a child with autism. And so they're really coming at this not just kind of understanding autism generally, but understanding that there are it's multidimensional, and that there are a number of ways that people present and have autism. And so we're really excited to launch this series, and would love your support helping to get the word out. I think what I started with is that parents really were asking for this type of content, because what we're trying to teach here is empathy. And so representing kids is definitely important, but we also want the larger audience to understand how to navigate relationships and to build community through this show. So we're really excited about it. Thank you for a few minutes to just introduce it to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kirsten. Questions and comments from council members? Kirsten, when does it launch?
November 14th is the broadcast launch.
Okay.
So, but we'll be kind of sneak peeking and putting things out throughout November. So if you have the PBS Kids app, you'll probably notice some kind of sneak peeks in the app.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next update from Early Childhood Intervention and Megan Young.
So I had just 2 updates to share with y'all today. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. The first one is about our request for applications, which we talked about in the last meeting. I have a timeline update for you all. Just as a reminder, the request for applications is the opportunity for organizations to apply to become or continue to be ECI subrecipients, which are our contracted local programs that actually engage with families and deliver services in ECI. The ECI RFA is included in the agency's procurement forecast, which is that second link on the slide here. That's where you can go to find updates to the timeline. And it's currently scheduled to post in December, and it will be posted on the first link there, which is resources.hhs.texas.gov/RFA. And then on the next slide, I wanted to share that the HHSC has submitted our legislative appropriations request for the upcoming legislative session and next biennial budget. This is submitted to the governor and members of the legislature ahead of the next session, and it includes our base request, which assumes no increases in state funding, as well as exceptional item requests through which the agency requests increases in state funding. And the HHSC legislative appropriations request does include exceptional item funding for ECI. The exceptional item request is $7.6 million in general revenue in fiscal year 26 and $10.4 million in fiscal year 27 for a total of $18 million across the biennium. That's on top of our base funding request. These amounts would support caseload growth, some cost growth, and method of finance adjustments to prevent a steep drop in our available federal funding under IDEA Part C in future biennia. This request also includes increasing the per child per month funding from what it is today in fiscal year 25 of $440.54 per child per month on average, up to $446.69 per child per month by fiscal year 27. So we're really excited to see the agency put forth another exceptional item to seek continued funding increases for ECI caseload growth. View this as an investment and commitment from HHSC to the sustainability of the ECI program. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. And then our last member update is from my agency on the child care program and Allison Wilson.
Okay, good afternoon now. It's just a little bit into the afternoon. So this first slide here is just showing you what our funding level looks like in Texas for the Child Care and Development Fund. In case you aren't already aware, which I'm sure many of you are, 1 in 10 children in the country live in Texas. So we've got a pretty big chunk of this overall block grant. And as you can see, the investment in this has gone up pretty dramatically. Over the past decade, our funding has increased over 150%. And we do use these dollars to serve as many children through our Child Care Services program as that funding will support. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. So this slide here, wanted to share an update on where we are with our payment rates. As we've shared over the past few years, we've made significant increases in what our base rates are. And of course, we also pay enhancements for Texas Rising Star certified providers on top of that. So we did begin paying at the 75th percentile in fiscal year 23. That is the recommended benchmark from the Office of Child Care. And there are other states that are not at that benchmark that are actually on, corrective action plans because of it. But we've been there since 23. And then in 24, we started to also look at a cost of quality price modeling study that models what the cost of care is for a baseline level of quality, and to look at rates at that level. And if the rate for that cost of quality would be higher than the 75th percentile rate, we bump it up to that higher rate. So in fiscal year 24, we had a study related to center-based care, and we made targeted rate increases over the 75th percentile based on that. And then this year, we have a study that is for home-based providers. And so once again, the 75th percentile was increased on a targeted basis for those rates that it shows it costs more than the 75th percentile to actually provide a baseline level of quality. In addition to increasing those payment rates, we've also increased our investment of quality funds that go to the boards. So in prior years, we were at what's required in statute, which is 2% of the allocation for board funding. And in fiscal years 23 and 24, we went up to 4%. And now in 25, we're actually going up to 6%. Hopping back over to the rates, I do want to mention that I think we talked about it last year, but with the center-based cost of quality study, most of the targeted rate increases were for infant and toddler rates. I think with the home-based study that we were able to look at this year, it's a little more mixed in terms of the age groups. And actually it was very interesting that there were a lot of rates that went up significantly based on that cost of quality study. So of course, that is a smaller, much smaller portion of children that we serve that are in home-based care, but the data was pretty interesting. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so in addition to the rate increases and the quality funding to boards, another thing that we have been growing over time is the funding to support the Texas Rising Star program. So this is the funding that supports the mentors that the workforce development boards fund, as well as the funding for assessors, which used to be at the boards, but is now with our centralized assessment entity. So with the passage of House Bill 2607, we recognize that we've got, thousands more providers to onboard into the program because of the requirement that they participate in Texas Rising Star and become certified. So we've increased this investment to support that growth over time. And you can see that, it's like 4 times as much than we were at in fiscal year 19. So, okay, next slide. All right, so this is our average number of children that we serve per day. And again, as I mentioned on the first slide where we looked at the funding levels, we are serving, as many children as we can with the funding that we have, and also accounting for the rates that we're paying and the quality investments that are needed to grow the level of quality across all CCS providers. So you can see here that we have managed, largely because of those big increases in the federal block grant, we've managed to increase the number of children we're serving. As of the end of this most recent fiscal year, it's not quite the end, it was as of August, we were at almost 150,000. We are looking at a target of about 155,000 for fiscal year 25. So continues to trend up for now. And of course, costs go up year over year. So this, sort of maintaining either the current caseload or growing it is really dependent upon the funding available and how much costs change. And that will include the mix of certified Texas Rising Star programs that we have in the program, because of course, as more become certified, that also increases the cost. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I think this is the last one. So this is summarizing for you what our childcare services waiting lists have looked like for the last few years. This is an average across the year. So you can see that it has grown substantially. Of course, in fiscal year 21 and 22, especially in 21, the levels I think were, somewhat suppressed because we were in the middle of COVID. But we are seeing that it has upticked even as we serve more children. The number of families on the waiting list also continues to grow. And related to this, we are planning to launch the new Text3C full system that includes a new statewide parent application the second week of December. And with parents being able to directly input their own application into a system and get on the waiting list, we may see some changes in what these numbers look like. There will also be some changes with how boards operationally manage that waiting list once we're in this new statewide system. So we will keep you updated about how these numbers change, but you know, they're not really a reflection necessarily of what the actual need is out there. It's kind of a mix of, well, who, you know, needs the care, but also has made the choice to try to pursue it, because we know that with long waiting lists, waiting times, that some families are not even going to bother to apply. So, okay. And also related to this, I also wanted to share, and you may have, if you've listened to some of the hearings that TWC has presented at recently, like our oversight committee in the House, the International Relations and Economic Development hearing, you would have heard some shorthand information about how many children we can support with $1 million. And so just for your own knowledge, that's about 100 kids per year. That's the average served per day that we can support with $1 million. And that $1 million does include that 6% carve out for quality improvement funds that go to the boards. So.
And let me just say, it's the specific number is 106 kids in 26 and 103 kids in 27. We're saying right about 100. But the specific is 106 and 103. Obviously, you see the number goes down slightly because we expect to pay more in the second year. So, all right, questions for Allison. Kim.
Allison, thanks for all the information. On the, well, first of all, congratulations on the December 8th deadline. I know that has been a baby you guys have been trying to birth for a very, very, very long time. And I know it's super exciting for the providers. There's lots of anticipation, lots of nervous energy out there. So I'm congratulations. Hopefully it goes as smooth as possible. We will be sending you all of our thoughts and good wishes as that goes live. So, but my question's about the reimbursement rates with the 75 percentile. Are you guys keeping, like, I know that's the base, and I know you guys are adjusting on the cost of quality. Do you guys have an estimation now what it is? Like what as you guys continue to increase it? So does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
You mean like how much some of the, like which rates are over and by how much?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we have done some analysis on that. I don't recall off the top of my head what the differentials are, and it kind of varies. And of course, it's
right, based on the workforce board.
Yep. Different parts of the state. But I think with the center-based care, which of course is much more of our care, it's like 97% of the children involved are in center-based.
On average.
Yeah, that it was 20 something rates that infant, and then I think a little bit less for toddler that were affected. But again, those are individual rates for infant care or toddler care in a specific workforce area. So there are, 40 some odd rates in total out of hundreds.
Yep. And then my last question, then Stephanie, I'll let you ask questions. On the wait list with the new application process, my head goes to that's going to increase. Is that where you guys are thinking as well?
That's my gut check. Yes.
Yeah.
But we don't know for certain. And I mean, there's a new policy that will go into effect at the same time that requires us to outreach the parent to ask them if they still need care every 90 days. Right now, that process varies by board. Some boards reach out to the parent. Some boards tell parents, you have to call us and let us know every 6 months if you need to stay on the waiting list. Otherwise, we're going to take you off. So that change, it could lead to, my guess is that it may lead to some inflation of the list in the short term that may shrink back down as parents and boards get used to this new process where the notices go out, and the notices will go out automatically, and a parent will, click a button to say, yes, I want to stay on, or no, I don't.
Okay.
And then the board will have to take action on that. So there's just going to be operationally some kinks to work out.
And just to be clear on that system, so in the new system, parents are going to apply through that one system, and that will get farmed out to the 28 local workforce boards.
Yes.
Versus right now, each parent's applying to each local workforce board,
Right.
and then that check will be every 90 days.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so there it could get inflated, and then we actually should hopefully then once it gets kinked out, we'll have actually a better accurate number of who really is on that wait list. And correct me if I'm wrong, that data will, sorry, Stephanie, I keep asking questions. That data will also include ages of those kids as well. So we'll actually have an idea of how many of those are infants and toddlers versus school age versus.
Yes, we are. We are collecting the ages and demographics. So we will be able to extract that from the system.
Very good. All right. All wishes on December 8th.
Thoughts and prayers.
Lots. Thank you.
Sure. Stephanie?
Yeah, thank you for this helpful information. Some of it, when I see it on a slide, it kind of blows me away a little bit. So, and even though I've heard of a lot of these numbers, but just together in sequence, the growth in the wait list is one, for the last couple of years. The wait list size is about half of the total number of kids served. So that's also, if we're serving, what was it, 150 or 160 some odd
50.
thousand, like that hits me as a big deal also. And I'm not telling you anything that's surprising. You live with it daily. I'm just, as I look at the numbers, and then thank you for providing the sort of amount of money, per 1,000 kids, per 100 kids. It bears reminding a little bit, as there's been lots of hearings about whether there's, in the interim hearings related to how many kids are on the wait list and kind of cost to reduce the wait list. And one of the things that strikes me, as somebody who works across issues, is that there's that's about $10,000 per kid per year, if I'm doing the math. You guys are trying to provide me with easy math. But that's full day, year-round care. There's a lot of programs that are funded, that are effective programs that are funded for kids and families that are $26,000, per family per year with a much lower dosage. A lot in the CPS space and a lot in the kind of prevention space. So it's a great investment for, what kids and families get for that year. I just feel like that sticker cost is actually quite amazing. And I just will let folks know that there is, based on some of the numbers we've learned, that there is a push among a huge number of entities across the state to try to ask the legislature to reduce the wait list by $10,000, by 10,000 kids for, a set amount of money, as Reagan suggests, which feels very doable. And it would be important, again, since there's 80,000, 10,000 is just a kind of a down payment on that, a step. And certainly we could try to wipe that in half, but that would be an even bigger ask. So I just, thank you for sharing the numbers. We know that, as you've shown, the more money you all have access to, the more slots for kids and that benefit. And so I think the numbers here are very helpful in that way. One question, how is that number, Reagan and Allison, is it exactly, 10,000 per kid? Is it 80 million to serve 8,000? Is that math correct? Or is there something, how, if the legislature said how much money would you need to reduce the wait list by 10 or 20,000 kids? How is that math working out cleanly, or what is the TWC response to that?
So, I mean, we don't usually think about it as like a total system cost for like the way you described it, for like a full-time slot, because it's really, there's a full case mix in there that needs to be thought of, right? Because not everyone's getting full-time, and depends if it's infant, toddler, school age, or whatever. But we do have we have a model, that forecasts what that case mix is going to be, and we have mechanisms to make those estimates. And so that's where that number that we shared and that came out in the hearing came from. That
yeah. And I just say, as Allison said, I mean, these really are estimates, because these estimates are based on it's based on like the case mix that we have now, like a third infants and toddlers, and a third, all of those can change. And so this truly is trying to forecast, like, well, we think the case mix is going to stay about the same, and we think there's going to be growth in Texas Rising Star, and so we're going to be paying a higher reimbursement rate. All of those are estimations that we're making to come up with this estimate. So it's an art more than a science, because if everybody became a 4-star program and we had no 2-star programs, we could serve fewer kids, right? Because they would be getting paid more. So these are our best estimations using, our assumptions on what we will see moving forward.
So if you use your current case mix, which I realize is different kids and different family needs, I think, Reagan, when you were at the hearing, there was a number, maybe it was 90 or $100 million would serve this many more, provide this many more scholarships. What was that number?
So I would have to get out my calculator, and I'd actually have to calculate this, but in the first year of the biennium, 1 million will serve 106 kids.
Okay.
And in the second year of the biennium, 1 million will serve 103 kids. So I don't have a calculator up to do the math.
Right.
But
I guess one question that came up too, which is a good one, is if there was a goal to reduce the wait list by a good chunk, 10,000, is the capacity there to serve that many more kids over the biennium, in terms of slots and workforce? And because we do hear from a lot of childcare educators that, there are some classrooms that, there is a lot of space, certainly with reimbursement rates that helps to hire more teachers, but what, like for an $80 million, $90 million, could a large chunk of additional scholarships be provided and kind of go directly to families, do you think?
Yeah, so let me say a couple of things. We don't know about provider capacity because there's not statewide reporting for providers to tell us how many available slots they have, or for providers to tell us, I am not making these slots available because I don't have the ability, like I can't hire teachers for these slots. Like that data does not exist. And so when you say, is there capacity? I don't think anybody can answer that at this point. I think that to the extent that people on the waiting list are already in childcare trying to pay for it themselves, then obviously there's capacity there. But again, we don't know what are the childcare arrangements of people on the waiting list right now. So I think it's really hard to answer. I think the program is scalable. I mean, our childcare services program is scalable. You can serve more, you can serve less.
Right.
It's just really hard to answer that capacity question. Allison, would you add anything else?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I mean, we do know anecdotally that there's certain areas of the state that seem to be struggling more with capacity issues, especially your more rural areas. And of course, this also intersects with the House Bill 2607 requirements and getting all CCS providers up to at least a 2-star level that, yeah.
So yeah, so we've been saying, I think around 90 million, you know, per year in the biennium would reduce the wait list by 10,000. So, and I think David on my team has been talking to you and your team about that too. So just, you can tell us offline if that seems like on target or there's an adjustment there, but we want to make sure that that number feels like it's in line with your estimates.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out as Allison was going through all of these numbers, there's a trade-off between direct care and quality. I mean, you're either going to spend it on one of those two things, right? You're going to put more kids in care, or you're going to spend more on quality. And we have really ramped up our investments in quality over the past few years with with Texas Rising Star, and then with mandatory Texas Rising Star. We've really increase the amount of money that we're spending on mentors, on assessors, on the board's quality improvement, and then on the higher reimbursement rates, both getting to the 75th and those enhanced rates for TRS. All of those things cost money. If we hadn't done those things, we would be serving a lot more kids. Our waiting list may not be what it is today if we hadn't done those things. But obviously, we're trying to couple both things, serving more kids, paying higher rates, and improving the quality of care. And it's just, it's a balancing act because you live within your finite amount of money.
No, and I'll just, speak very candidly. I think you've done an amazing job in balancing all those things and using the federal money, very efficiently and strategically. I was just thinking, of course, if we want to serve more kids and with quality, we need more money. And that's part of what we're just trying to just think about, what's an estimate that's sort of justifiable that would help TWC provide funding to support quality and more kids together at the same time, because we certainly don't want more low quality childcare. We want more care and more high quality care. So we're on the same page, and we appreciate your efforts on all those pieces for sure.
Yeah. And I know we had a council member who asked what were our waiting lists before. I've actually asked somebody at the office if they can pull August 2019 data and just tell me how many people were on the waiting list in August of 2019. I don't have that handy, but we'll see if we can get that before the meeting's over and share that with you.
Also, Reagan and Allison, just one more data point that I find important sometimes is, what % of licensed childcare providers are in the CCS program? I want to say it's like 13%.
That's more like our percentage of licensed capacity.
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of the number of providers, it's like around 45%. It's less than half.
Okay.
Barely less than half.
But that's if you look at all provider types. 96% of our kids are in centers. And if you look at centers, we're usually up in the 58, sometimes we get to 60%. So if you look only at those centers where the vast majority of kids are, we have a higher penetration rate into that portion of the market.
Okay. I feel like that's helpful to know, because it's also a representation that from our perspective, more public money would help more providers, because there's so many in the subsidy system, and there's a huge diversity of providers too, whether it's, within the center-based category, faith-based providers versus others. And so I think that just helps explain to policymakers about where would more money flow in their communities, and it's to a diversity of providers, because families want choices. So
yeah.
thank you.
And I think part of our challenge is, we all know about the workforce challenges in childcare, and I think folks wish that our subsidy system could make an impact on it. but it's just really challenging. I mean, if you look at the number of referrals that those centers have, over 60% have 20% or fewer of their kids coming from CCS. Like it's not the majority of their enrollment. So most providers have a handful of kids, of CCS kids. And I say, if we were to triple our rates, we're going to triple our rates, it wouldn't make an impact on wages because private pay parents aren't going to triple their rates, right? And so even if you gave a whole bunch more money through our system, because providers have so few children referred, that this mechanism that we have now, isn't the mechanism that works. When we had stimulus funds and when we made those CCRF payments available, that's a different mechanism for providing funding to providers, right? That wasn't based on how many CCS referrals you had, that was based on the size of your program. So looking at the CCS system as it's structured now, operationally, structurally, it isn't able to make that type of an impact.
That just has an argument to rethink the system, Reagan. So,
well, and again, the federal CCDF grant, the way it's structured,
right?
It isn't structured to do that. It's structured for 70%, at least 70% of the funds to pay for childcare subsidies, financial assistance for children. That's the structure of the CCDF program as it stands now.
Yep. And I know we probably need to move on, but two thoughts on one. When we did when Children at Risk did our childcare desert data for FY23, so we've made a big jump, since 2024. But in 23, we are now serving more kids in a Texas Rising Star program than non-TRS program, right? So which is the first time we've been able to say that as a state, that more kids are in quality and in childcare services than ever before. So that is a kudos to you, kudos to all the providers that are going through Texas Rising Star and are serving those kids well. And parents are choosing. We're not at 50% providers are on TRS yet, or as of that date and time. But the kids are there, so the children are there, so parents are choosing those providers. So that is a piece. And I'm just putting this out there for future TLC meetings. I would love to have an update from, I know April's not here, on centralized assessors and how that process is going. I know that's been a bumpy road as they've transitioned over to that, and I know things are improving, but still in a process. So I would love to get an update just as a member to understand where that process is and where that's going. So as a future meeting.
All right. In answer to the question about prior wait lists, I don't have like the annual average. I just asked my folks, hey, look at August of 2019, since that's the end of the state fiscal year. There were 30,952 kids on the waiting list in August of 2019, just as a comparison. All right, so that takes us to the end of member updates. Do any other members have anything that they want to share with the group before we go to our next agenda item on early childhood events? Any updates from members? All right, okay. Then on to our next agenda item, and it's early childhood events. And Megan is going to provide an update on behalf of Dr. Alferma Giles from Head Start Collab Office.
Great, thank you, Reagan. So Dr. Giles was not able to be here, but she wanted to share 3 upcoming events, and I will drop the links for these in the chat as well. So there is a Region 6 Head Start Association conference that'll be taking place next week, just in a few days actually, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's also an Office of Head Start Regional Roadshow schedule, which is taking place at the end of the month in Dallas, and a Texas Head Start Association Fall Conference, which will be November 12th and 14th, also in Dallas. And I am not in a position to field any follow-up questions about these because I'm just sharing on her behalf. Weldon might know more about any of these, but yeah, that's her update.
All right. Stephanie, is your hand up for this, or was that for before? Okay. All right. Any other announcements for upcoming events?
Yeah, I've got one. Just as a reminder to everyone, we are halfway through our Texas tour for our fall Texas tour. So I'm going to put the link in the chat if you are in San Antonio, Midland, Houston, Tyler, or Austin. Those are all still upcoming. So if you are in those communities, feel free to join us. We'd love to have you.
I'm impressed. That's a lot of upcoming meetings to remember to name off.
7 down, 5 to go. So
you're busy. All right. Anyone else?
Terry,
I would like,
oh,
yeah,
can I ask-
just, I typed in about the email with Catherine Davies and it bounced back. And so I just wanted to make sure that that's the right email because I'm interested in being on that panel or whatever, but I did it once and I did make a mistake, but then and I typed it in, I went back and looked and typed it in again and it bounced back again. So I'll try. Oh, I see. Somehow it had had TEA.texas.gov. Okay, thank you. That helps.
Becky, I'm so glad you flagged that so we could get that corrected before the
Yeah,
meeting is
because
over.
I said, what's wrong? And I went back on my set of slides, that you had sent. I thought, this is not right. So thank you.
Good timing. Thank you. Stephanie.
I was maybe pass it over to Terry if you know more about this than I do, but because I know my team has been in contact with you about this good news, but that developmental delay has been added by TEA to the eligibility for early childhood special ed. That was something that had been happening in some other states, and the TEA team was very interested in that. So, but Terry, is there may be more detail from you, and you can explain it better.
Well, it has passed, and so developmental delay is one of the eligibility categories for children ages 3 through 9, and it begins this year, the 24-25 school year. I don't know what else to share with it, but it is one of the eligibility categories.
So the next steps would be districts would just implement it or choose to. They'll get guidance from you all about how to implement it. Would that be the next step?
We are working on guidance now.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting.
All right. Anyone else?
I have one more thing. We had the good fortune at UH Clear Lake to get a $538,000 Moody grant.
Whoa.
And this Moody grant
cool.
it's for a number of years, but it's for helping for scholarships for students that are going on in early childhood with special ed, the ECI certificate and early childhood special ed. And there's several of our degrees that you could do with this specialization. And it also provides a lot of help for the students and, mentoring and all that type of stuff. And starts in the spring. And so we're recruiting for that right now. And so I have for students, for scholarship students, and it's for undergraduates. And so we were really pleased to be one of the big winners of that. And so anyway, that's what's going on at our place, among a lot of other things. And that's to and so also with our early childhood special ed faculty, Elizabeth Beavers, etc. So because of the big need for ECI professionals and early childhood special ed professionals across the state, and especially in our area. So thank you.
That's really fantastic. I'm curious, how are you outreaching, or is there information posted somewhere if people are interested?
Well, we did go, this past weekend, we had a table at the, TAYC conference. We had a flyer on that, and we haven't really done as much as probably we need to, but, to get the word out and see the money, it starts for spring semester. So we have to be able to get the word out about that. And I have to, if my colleague, I'm not the program director anymore, but my colleague, Dr. Amber Brown is. So if there's a place that I could send information, I don't have it on me right now, but I could get it from Dr. Brown. And she has a flyer and information. So
Yeah,
just let me know.
I mean, I think that would be great. I'm wondering if you want to send that to Megan, and Megan could share it with council members. That's
Yeah.
very, very exciting.
Yes, we were thrilled about it. And so, yeah, I'll get something and send it to Megan. I'll have Amber give me stuff and I can send it to Megan and she could send it out. And if there's anybody interested, because that is a high need area and we have the money for it. So it'd be shame not to have it. It's very hard to give away scholarship money, believe it or not. So, yeah.
Great.
We're interested for sure. So
yeah,
please add us to the list.
Okay.
All right. Any other member updates? Okay. Thanks, everyone. All right, on to our next agenda item. We want to talk about our proposed dates for the upcoming calendar year. So, everyone, get out your calendars because we're going to see if anybody has any conflicts with these proposed dates that are on the screen. All from 11 to 1, January 17th, April 11th, August 8th, and October 24th. Sarah, you have your hand up?
I do. I raised this with Megan earlier, but I did just want to say that I personally have a conflict with January 17th, but I also just wanted to call out that it's the Friday before a 3-day weekend. So I just wanted to say others may also have a conflict with that particular day.
Okay, that could be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to look for alternate dates. Gosh, this is going to be hard, isn't it? This is always difficult. So if we were to look at dates in January, in and around January, let's just start with January 10th, the week before. And just feel free to speak up without putting your hands up if you have a conflict. Because I have two screens open now. So anybody have a conflict with January 10th? I'm hearing no. Okay. So Megan, can we update January 17th to January the 10th?
Yep, that sounds good.
Wonderful. Okay, now April 11th, any conflicts? Wonderful. August 8th.
Who knows?
Really?
At this moment.
Not currently.
At this
I
moment.
abstain. Yeah.
And we all understand how calendars go crazy later on. But at this point in time, we're not overlapping any conferences or any planned events.
Nope.
Wonderful. Okay, then with that change to January 7th, calendar for January 10th. That is our next scheduled meeting. And that brings us to the end of this Texas Early Learning Council meeting. Before I adjourn us, any other comments from council members?
Reagan, I see hands up for Stephanie, Becky, and Amber, but I don't know if those are old.
Oh, no, they're old.
I think they
No.
might be old.
Just leave my hand permanently up, basically.
Actually, if I may, I think I had mine on, but then I think I took it off. But just wanted to share with everyone, and this goes back to the events. Texas Southmost College will be hosting the Southmost Chapter Texas AEYC mini conference this fall, October 26th. We're trying to reach out to Cameron, Willis, Star, and Hidalgo County members. So if you know of anyone that's interested, please have them reach out to us, and wishing everybody a great upcoming holiday, I guess, in November. So thank you for all the work that everybody's been doing. I think I'm super excited, and I've taken lots of notes to share back
Wonderful.
with our
Thank you,
groups.
Maricela. October 26th is the date. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Wonderful.
Reagan and Megan, is there any chance in the next year we could have a meeting in person? Or do we need to get some funding somehow to do that? Or, I mean, it's been nice to get together.
I think we need to check on the funding because I am not sure. I can't remember. So let us look into that.
Okay.
And if it's possible, so as you guys think about those dates that we just discussed, I think January 17th would be too soon.
Yeah.
But if we think about April 11th, August 8th, or October 24th, if we have money, is there a preferred date? I'm almost, I wonder about April 11th because it's during session, and so travel could be, I mean, it would be taking a lot of time to travel to a meeting.
But Fridays are usually calmer at the Capitol.
They are usually calmer. You would probably have to travel on Thursday to be here. For those out of town, you would have to travel on Thursday to be here for a meeting Friday. So I guess it's really all of you out of towners that have to travel to Austin. What are your thoughts on that? And are your thoughts that you would prefer a hybrid meeting, which I think are sometimes challenging because I think that our hybrid members, it's as interactive unless everybody's hybrid. That's just my own personal opinion. I find it more challenging when a few people are on the screen and everybody else is in person.
Yeah, and especially true because especially true about with hybrid, because especially if you're putting PowerPoints up and they're behind the PowerPoint, you forget about them,
Maybe one option is to think about the October meeting, because it'd be really far in advance, and that would depend on funding, of course. And then we could survey and see how many people could really make it or not, and then decide whether to keep it Zoom. But that's just, it seems like we need a little to figure out whether the funding will be available before we pick a date per se.
Yeah.
It was just an idea.
All right. Okay, then it sounds like we have some homework to do on our end to see what kind of funding we might still have available.
Okay.
See if we've got an opportunity there. All right. Well, then with that, it is 12:55. I'm going to call this Texas Early Learning Council meeting to a close. Thank you, members, for great discussion today, and thank you for all of our public members for joining us. Look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Thank you.